Welcome to a new sci-fi universe called The Dominion, publishing soon. Chapter 1. The Zithian Conflict. The vast citadel, a monolithic testament to the Dominion's might, loomed against the endless expanse of the cosmos, radiating an aura of dark, imposing majesty. At its heart, within the Grand Chamber, Emperor Valandriel sat among his brethren, the Dark Council. This council was not only the embodiment of power and strategy, but the very core of leadership that guided the Dominion's relentless march toward triumph. As they sat in their thrones, shrouded in shadows, their discussions revolved around the future steps in their grand quest for conquest. Their eyes cast outward toward the uncharted sectors of the galaxy, seeking new worlds to fall under the Dominion's banner, ever expanding their reach, ever securing the might of their empire. Holographic displays flickered to life within the Grand Chamber, casting eerie blue hues across the dimly lit room. Images of a desolate world, scarred and smoldering from recent orbital bombardment, hovered before the Dark Council. Over the devastation came a sudden transmission, the shaky feed revealing the battered figure of a man aboard a heavily damaged corvette. His uniform, once a proud symbol of the Dominion's Imperial Navy, was now torn and stained with blood from injuries sustained during the escape. "My lords," the man stammered, his voice trembling as he addressed the council. "I apologize for interrupting your deliberations, but our settlement needs the Dominion's help. The Zithians, they came without warning. Orbital bombardment. No reason, no mercy. My ship and crew, we barely made it out alive." He struggled to maintain composure, but the desperation in his eyes betrayed him. "Please, help us," he rasped, coughing as the transmission cut off abruptly, leaving only silence in the wake of his plea. The atmosphere in the chamber shifted, the cold detachment of strategy giving way to seething rage. Lord Vargas, the Grand Master of the Halls of Justice, rose from his seat, his voice a thunderous echo. "The Zithians dared to attack one of our settlements," he bellowed, his eyes aflame with fury. "This offense demands retribution. They must face the full force of Imperial judgment. There can be no leniency, no hesitation. Justice will be served for those who were slaughtered." The rest of the council nodded in grim agreement, their faces hardening with resolve. The time for deliberation had passed. Retribution was imminent. Emperor Valandriel slowly raised his hand, a silent command for the council to settle down. His voice, usually cold and methodical, now carried a sharper edge, laced with a chilling undertone. "The Zithians believe they can destroy one of our settlements, slaughter our people, and escape unscathed," he growled, his gaze sweeping across the council. His words resonated with a quiet, restrained fury. "I think not." His gaze settled on Lord Azariel, the Dominion's War Master, and his most trusted commander of war. "If they wish to test the strength of the Dominion, then let us show them what happens when they cross that line. I am dispatching you, Azariel, and your battle group. Handle this situation as only you can. You know what needs to be done." Azariel, seated in the shadowy recess of his throne, radiated an aura of seething dark energy. The crimson glow emanating from the crevices of his armor pulsed like a beating heart, mirroring the growing rage within. Slowly he stood, towering and menacing, his voice a low, sinister whisper. "I understand, brother. It will be done." Without another word, Azariel descended the steps of the Grand Council chamber, his black cloak trailing behind him. As he walked toward the exit, he activated the hollow communicator embedded in his gauntlet. "This is Azariel. Prepare the fleet for immediate combat deployment. Our destination, the Zithian homeworld. They have dared to bombard our people. Now they will feel the full weight of Dominion retaliation." With that, the War Master strode out, leaving a palpable tension in the air, his presence a dark omen of the destruction that was soon to follow. Lord Azariel's battle group tore into the Zithian system with a shuddering ripple of distorted space-time, their arrival a looming wall of Dominion warships. This was not the Lord's full might, merely a fraction meant to incite terror. Azariel had dispatched only his flagship and a select few of the Dominion's heaviest hitters, yet even this modest attack fleet dwarfed the Zithian forces by staggering proportions. The Zithian fleet, hastily assembled from their limited resources, consisted of a mere 14 ships, vessels crafted within their isolated star systems, where they governed only 5 habitable worlds. Against them loomed 210 of the Dominion's colossal battleships and heavily armed support cruisers. The Zithian flagship, formidable by their standards, was barely the size of a Dominion cruiser and nowhere near the might of a Dominion battleship. Here, in this corner of space, the Zithians would come face to face with the overwhelming scale of Dominion power. Standing at the helm of his command bridge, Azariel's imposing figure was framed by the panoramic view of the battlefield. He opened a fleet-wide holocommunicator, his voice cold, measured, and unwavering. "The Zithian race are wannabe tacticians of naval warfare," he declared. "But remember, we are the Dominion. We have the numbers and the skills, and we wield weapons forged for moments such as this. Launch all fighters and bombers. Close ranks, and do not let their fire divide our formation. Stay disciplined. We will show them what it means to defy the Dominion." As his words rippled through the battle group, the fleet responded with precision. Capital ships shifted into offensive formations. Carriers opened their launch bays, and waves of fighters and bombers streamed out, filling the void with swarming formations. Hundreds of Dominion craft moved swiftly, forming an iron shield that surged toward the Zithian forces. The Zithian fleet, sharp and relentless in its approach, wasted no time. They unleashed a brutal barrage of firepower, energy lances and plasma beams streaking through the darkness, crashing into Dominion shields and hulls with devastating accuracy. The first strikes rocked the Dominion ships, but Lord Azariel stood unmoved, eyes locked on the chaos unfolding. In response, the Dominion battle group retaliated, unleashing their own fury upon the Zithians. Laser cannons, railguns, and energy projectors lit up the battlefield in a spectacle of death and destruction. The vast void of space became a blinding storm of fire as the two mighty fleets clashed in a symphony of annihilation. Despite the Zithians' relative mastery of naval warfare and meticulous strategy, they were met with the unrestrained fury of a Dominion battle fleet. Had the Zithians chosen peace over brutality in their first contact, they one day may have made excellent shipmates within the Dominion's navy. The Dominion's fleet was no ordinary fleet. It was commanded by a Dark Lord of Chaos. To face a single Lord of Chaos on the battlefield was to encounter a force of unparalleled destruction. And now, the Zithians would come to know firsthand the brutal depths of the Dominion's wrath. The clash was a massacre. In a matter of hours, the once mighty Zithian armada had been reduced to its flagship and 2 heavily damaged cruisers, their hulls buckling under relentless fire. What had begun as a calculated defense devolved into a desperate struggle for survival as the Dominion tore through their ranks with cold precision. This fleet, their species' only shield against interstellar threats, was now a scattered collection of burning wreckage, the remnants drifting silently, destined to become little more than debris. Amidst the ruins of his fleet, the Zithian admiral, watching in horror as his last cruisers limped across the battlefield, opened a communication line to Lord Azariel. Desperation and defeat etched on his face, he pleaded, "Stop! Stop this massacre! We surrender!" In response, the Dominion fleet ceased its barrage, their weapons now trained on the remaining Zithian ships in a menacing silence. The once chaotic battlefield now stood eerily still, save for the hulking forms of Dominion warships surrounding the shattered remnants of the Zithian fleet. Weapons primed and ready to fire at a moment's notice. On the bridge of the Reclaimer of Sanctum, a massive heavy battleship twice the size of a standard Dominion battleship, Lord Azariel stood cloaked in shadow, a towering figure exuding an aura of menace. His voice, a chilling blade of barely controlled rage, answered the Zithian admiral's plea. "Admiral, the only surrender I'll consider is one delivered in person on my bridge." His command lingered, cold and resolute. The Zithian admiral hesitated but knew he had no choice. "Understood, my lord. I will come at once." Moments later, a shuttle departed from the crippled Zithian flagship, its destination one of the many hangars aboard the colossal reclaimer of Sanctum. As the Admiral disembarked, he was met by 4 of Azariel's royal guards, their armored forms and intimidating escort through the battleship's silent halls. Upon reaching the bridge, the Admiral was struck by the grandeur and severity of the command center. But most imposing was Lord Azariel himself, standing upon the overseer platform, his gaze fixed outward, cold and calculating. The Zithian Admiral approached, lowering himself to one knee. "My lord," he began, his voice weighted with fear and desperation, "the Zithian fleet surrenders. I only ask that you spare my men. They followed my orders." Azariel turned to face him, his eyes a blazing promise of vengeance. "Spare them? Just as you spared the innocents on that colonial world?" His tone was glacial, each word laced with disdain. "They slaughtered women and children, Admiral. Under your orders. You speak of mercy, yet you showed none to those who had no means to defend themselves." The Admiral's face twisted with panic as he looked up. "No, they are only young conscripts in service. Don't do this." He scrambled to his feet, desperation fueling his plea. But his protest was met with a swift, brutal blow. Azariel's fist cracked against his face, sending him back to his knees, blood trickling from his mouth and fear seizing his heart. "They were young, yes, but they followed your orders to murder innocent civilians." Azariel's voice rose, cutting through the silence with scorn. "An entire colony, Admiral. No strategic significance, no defense, annihilated right down to the children." He turned his gaze to the bridge crew. "Target the 2 remaining cruisers and their flagship. Obliterate them." The bridge crew acted immediately, unleashing the full fury of the battleship's weaponry. Through the viewport, the Admiral watched helplessly as his last ships were consumed in searing explosions, his crew annihilated. Overcome with grief and rage, the Admiral staggered to his feet, lunging toward Azariel in a final, desperate act. But before he could reach him, an unseen force tightened around his throat, halting him mid-stride. He dropped to the floor, gasping for air as Azariel loomed above, contempt etched into his expression. "Predictable," Azariel sneered. "In your final moments, you sought ironic vengeance, knowing you'd already lost." He reached for a handle at his side, a sword emblazoned with the sigil of the Dominion at the center of its handguard. A series of glyphs etched throughout the blade glowed an ominous red, casting the baleful light across the bridge. "For your crimes, I sentence you to death." With a single swift stroke, Azariel's blade separated the Admiral's head from his body, a fitting end for one who had dared cross the Dominion. As the shattered remains of the Zithian fleet drifted, scattered and lifeless, Lord Azariel opened a direct communicator link to the planet's surface, targeting the Archprimal himself, the supreme leader of the Zithian race. After a tense silence, the transmission came to life, and the Archprimal's face appeared, his expression twisted with anger and contempt. "Ha! How dare you!" the Archprimal spat, his voice thick with venom. "You have defiled my fleet with your wretched presence. The Zithians are far stronger than your pathetic dominion could ever comprehend." Before he could finish, Lord Azariel's icy tone cut through his words. "Your fleet and your race both require a lesson in the true nature of power. You speak of strength, yet your so-called superior fleet could not inflict even a scratch on my vessels. You dare challenge the Dominion with dishonorable conscripts and call it superiority." Azariel's voice, cold and resolute, left no room for doubt. "I offer you one chance. Surrender now and face judgment for your unprovoked massacre of innocent Dominion lives, or continue this futile resistance and watch your people perish." There was a pause, and then the Archprimal's face twisted into a mocking smile, a dark chuckle escaping his lips. "Surrender?" he sneered, the laughter growing as if the mere suggestion was an insult. "You may have destroyed our fleet, but the Zithians do not kneel. Our strength lies in ground combat, where your Dominion will find no victory. Our soldiers will tear through your forces like paper. We will fight on, and your so-called Dominion will crumble before our might." With a final look of defiance, the Archprimal severed the transmission, leaving Lord Azariel alone with the hum of the silent communicator. Azrael's expression hardened, his eyes narrowing as he watched the channel fade to static. The challenge had been issued, and now he would answer it in kind. As the silent hum of the communicator faded into stillness, Lord Azrael stood motionless, the weight of his decision settling heavily in the charged atmosphere of the bridge. His gaze steeled, and a grim smile formed as he spoke softly, as if to himself. So be it. He chooses resistance. He chooses the annihilation of his own race. Turning to the bridge officers, his stance radiated the unwavering commitment of what was to come. The Zithians have chosen ignorance over reason, defiance over peace, he declared, his tone growing in intensity. His voice rose to a thunderous command. We, the Dominion, will put these blue bastards in their place. The bridge erupted into a roar of approval, echoing the sentiment of their leader. With a fierce determination, Azrael lifted his glowing sword high, casting an ominous red light across the deck. Cheers erupted around him, a resounding chorus of loyalty and fervor. Lowering his blade, he tapped the console before him, and the ship's lights flashed red, signaling a full-scale red alert across the battle group. He spoke into the open communicator with the cold, lethal precision of a warrior prepared for retribution. This is Lord Azrael to all ships. Deploy all Titan legions and prepare the orbital drop pods. The Zethian race has chosen ground combat. He paused, his voice dark with anticipation. Their first mistake. Their second mistake was believing they could defy the Dominion and live to tell the tale. Now we show them the might of the Dominion's Marines. With that, the bridge fell silent. But for the hum of the deployment protocols, every crew member braced and eager, prepared to deliver the devastation that awaited the Zithians below. As the Zithian forces braced themselves for battle, a chilling sight filled the skies above. From the heavens, massive pillars of fire descended with deadly precision, streaking through the atmosphere like fiery meteors. Each impact shook the ground with terrifying force, sending shockwaves through the air. When the dust and smoke cleared, towering figures emerged, behemoths of steel, weapons burning with the malice and hatred of man. Leading this invasion, a monstrous Infernus-class battle titan strode forward, each footfall like a death knell echoing across the plains. Its hulking frame, adorned with gleaming Dominion insignias, exuded an aura of unstoppable might. A Zithian officer, standing among his ranks, watched the approach of this behemoth, his eyes wide with terror. His hands trembled, and his voice shook as he murmured, "By the Arch-Primal, may the Creator spare us, or Pertis." But his words fell into the void, lost beneath the relentless march of the Dominion war machine as it moved closer, its armament gleaming menacingly. And then, as if summoned by the Titan's advance, a rain of drop pods descended from the sky, hurtling toward the surface in relentless waves. The ground around the Titan erupted with impact after impact as the pods embedded themselves into the earth. Hatches burst open, and out poured battalions of Dominion soldiers in perfect formation. Armored vehicles roared to life, rumbling forward with lethal intent. Their formations precise, their movements swift. With flawless coordination, the Dominion forces advanced, fast marching across the battlefield with chilling determination, a sea of black and steel heading straight toward the Zithians. The officer could only stare, paralyzed by the reality that had descended upon his people. A Dominion invasion, led by forces that showed no mercy and commanded the wrath of gods. As the Dominion's colossal Titan continued its steady, ominous march toward the Zithian lines, the atmosphere grew charged with dread. Recognizing the impending catastrophe, Scythian commanders swiftly issued a unified command across their defensive lines: unleash the full might of all stationary artillery and rain destruction upon the advancing Dominion. Within moments, the skies filled with fiery arcs from the Zithian artillery, each shell whistling through the air with practiced precision. Vehicles and squad support walkers responded in kind to the barrage with intense point defense lasers. Nearly 80% of the shells were detonated in the air harmlessly. The remaining shells that landed managed to kill a few of the dauntless soldiers, but their spacing and power armor saved them from the worst of the blasts. The target of concentrated fire, however, was the Titan, Hundreds of shells and rockets careened through the air aimed at the Colossus, yet the monstrous Infernus-class battle titan remained unfazed. Surrounded by a powerful dark matter force field, the Titan seemed invincible, its shimmering barrier deflecting each artillery shell with disdain. As the Zithian officers watched in horror, the Titan's main cannons began to hum, building energy with a high-pitched whine that resonated across the battlefield. The blinding red glow of its charging energy lances intensified until, in a single blinding pulse, the Titan unleashed its wrath. Beams of pure destruction lanced out, searing through Zithian defensive lines and silencing a majority of their artillery in one devastating sweep. The once formidable Zithian defenses were obliterated. Their artillery positions turned to smoldering craters. The battlefield erupted into a frenzy of bloodshed as Dominion forces pushed forward, engaging Zithian troops in relentless waves. Both sides fought with the zeal of warriors, yet the Zithians were rapidly losing ground. Dominion dropships continuously poured reinforcements onto the field, bolstering their numbers with disciplined soldiers and devastating weaponry. Above the chaotic fray, the scene was a storm of multicolored energy blasts, a vivid and violent display of lasers, plasma bolts, and energy beams that crisscrossed the terrain. Every exchange drained both armies' resources, but the Dominion's nigh-perfect logistics, tactics, and seemingly endless reserves tilted the battle in their favor. The Zithians, though resilient, found themselves battered and overwhelmed by the Dominion's superior firepower and relentless reinforcements. Each pulse and blast marked a step closer to their defeat, as the Dominion ground their resistance to dust beneath the unstoppable advance of the Empire's might. As Dominion forces continued their advance, the Zithian defenses buckled under the assault. Every minute brought the Dominion closer to the heart of the Zithian capital, the city's once formidable bastions and forward operating bases falling like dominoes. One by one, Zithian strongholds were conquered, each fortress captured or obliterated under the crushing might of the Dominion. Bloodied and exhausted, the Zithian soldiers retreated to their final defenses, aging bunkers and barricades, remnants from their own wars of old, now repurposed in a last desperate stand. The Dominion troops pressed forward with an unyielding ferocity, their advance marked by the corpses of those who had dared to resist. Upon his ship, Azrael sought to make an example, one so indelible that it would echo through the ages and etch itself into the minds of all who bore witness. To achieve this, he needed a target, one that would embody the weight of Dominion power. As the battle below raged on, he meticulously scanned through images of every planet in the system, evaluating each with a cold and calculating precision. Then he found it. The image revealed a sprawling city, its grand avenues and towering structures interspersed with areas distinctly segregated from the general populace. The gathered intelligence confirmed its nature, a martial city, a bastion of military power and pride. Beneath his helmet, a faint smile formed, an expression of satisfaction. Azariel wasted no time. He prepared his flagship, rallying his elite personal guard, their armor gleaming with the sigils of Dominion authority. Together they embarked, setting their course for the world that would become the stage for his grim demonstration of Dominion judgment.